Hi everyone, this is Sharan here. Welcome to my channel. Today in this video we are going to learn about using various joins in SQL. There are four types of join. They are inner join, left join, right join and a full order join. I will be providing you a brief explanation about each of these joins, like how it would work using a whiteboard. And later we will be moving into the tutorials to see how to implement all these joins using MySQL with a sample data. So having said that, let's go into the four types of joins, and let me provide you a brief introduction, like about how it works and how to visualize it. Always while working on SQL, it would be better if you can visualize the data and then see what you would want, and it is easy by that way to translate that into an SQL query. So coming to this example, so let's say in order to join two different tables, so we have a table 1 T1 and table 2 T2. So let's say there are some information up here in T1 and some information in T2. For example, if I take an example of sales for a particular retail store. So let's say the T1 table has all the sales details. It has various dates and then the number of sales that happened on a particular day and so on. So we have another table which has information such as whether it was a holiday, or whether it was raining heavy on that particular day, or the weather was very pleasant. So it has various details about that particular day. So now that would be a requirement for us to combine these two data based on the dates to see if there is any correlation between the weather condition as well as the sales that is happening. So in order to join the data from two different tables, we need to use any of these joins. So it's good to understand about how joins work. The reason why we are learning about joins is in most of the corporate environment, the data would be present in an RDBMS. So you have to write query and you have to prepare the data set, and once you prepare the data set, then it goes into Python and then we do all the data analysis. But majority of the data sourcing would happen in SQL. So it's always good for you to learn about SQL. Let's go into the tutorial. Let's go into the whiteboard and then see what are all the four different joins. So the first one that you see on the top here is the inner join. So what happens is in an inner join we have two tables, T1 and T2. So let's say like for every record, like for example, if we pick up the same example, like the sales data, so every day we have sales reported. So maybe there could be some days, like a Sunday could have been a holiday, or there could be some public holiday where the store was not opened, so the sales details won't be available for that particular day. Similarly, on the other hand, so the weather data might not be available on certain days. Maybe the sensor was not working, or the data was not collected on certain days. So there is possibility for us to miss some data on like both sides of the table. So what happens is when we do an inner join, what happens is only the data that matches in both these tables would come along. So as you see here, I have shaded the center part, the part that is being intersect, which means that only the part that is common between the table 1 and table 2 will be fetched. All the other records, for example, if table 1 has a few days where there was no sales happened, so there is no record for that particular day. So even if we have any weather data for that particular day, that will not be fetched. So what happens is it fetches only the common records. So that's what the inner join would do. So the next one is the left join. So as you see here, what happens is in the left join, whatever data that is given in the first table, like you can call it as a left hand side table or the first table, would all come up, and for all the records that is present in the first table, in table T1, if a matching record is found in the second table like T2, all those matching records would have been fetched. So that's why if you see here, everything that is present in T1 would come through, and whatever matching records are found in table 2 will also be fetched. So in our example, like all the sales details that we have in table 1, whenever we have the weather data for that particular day from table 2, it will be fetched. So that's what will happen when you use a left join. So the right join, the next one, is the exact opposite of the left join. So in case of right join, what happens is every single entry that is present in the right hand side table will be fetched, and whenever there is a matching record in the left hand side table, they will alone be fetched. In our case, the table 2 is the weather related data. So all the weather related data will be fetched, and whenever there is the sales data reported for that particular day, that will also be fetched. So that's what the right join would do. So technically what we would do is we would have a purpose for the analysis. So for example, if we are working on like maybe the prediction of sales in a particular store, so this becomes our core table. So this will always become the core table, and whatever relevant data that we are able to tell it, we would join. So this would always be the first table, and we would try to do left join and then fetch as many information as possible. We don't want to lose any records from this source table. So that's what the right join, like it's exactly opposite of what left join would do. And the last one is the full outer join. So if in case like we don't want to miss any record, we want every single data to be collected. So if there are few days where there is no sales happened, and then there is no record for our sales on a particular day, or whenever there is few days where there is a weather data and there is no matching or an relevant sales data, or the other way around, whenever we have the sales reported for a particular day but we don't have the weather related information for that particular day. So whatever be the combinations, or what the purpose of full outer join is, whatever records that is found in T1 as well as T2 will all be fetched. Whenever we are able to match it, we would have data for all the details, like it would have data from table 1 and data from table 2. So when one of these are missing, they will be null, whereas the other tables data would be present. For example, if table 1 has null whereas table 2 has data for a particular day, so what would happen is in this final table, the table 1 related records would be null, whereas table 2 related records would be populated. Similarly, other way around. So full outer join will ensure that we are not missing any record from any of those tables. We are trying to collect all of it. So generally it is not it will not be used, because in most of the analysis that will be a sole purpose. So we keep the purpose as the main table, like the main source, and then we try to join get as many details as possible using the left join or inner join. Yeah, so that's about the various joins and how it would be used, the theoretical concepts behind it. Before going into the tutorial, if you haven't subscribed to my channel so far, please consider subscribing to my channel. I post tutorial videos and various other data science related contents, and which would be really helpful for you to improve your data science skills. And let's go into the tutorial video. The sample data that we are going to use today in order to learn about the joins are here. So I have created a sample data based on the data from the default DB. So let me show you how the sample data would look like. So it has two tables. So one is film test and the other one is strategy underscore test. So in film underscore test, we have the film ID, category ID, as well as the title and description of the film. And in the second table, category test, what we have is we have the category ID as well as the category of that particular movie. So we are going to see how to do various joins and how the records would be fetched. So there are 7 records in the second table, and if I see the first table, we have 20 records. So as you see here in the bottom, so it shows like the number of records that are already fetched. So if there are like large amount of data set, by default in MySQL, it will be limiting to 1000 rows here. So here in this case, we no need to worry about it. Like it's very few data set that we are going to work on today, just to learn about the various joins. So the first one is inner join. So in the inner join, what happens is, this is how the syntax would look like. So we just give select and various columns that we need to select from the tables. So you are seeing F dot and C dot here. I will shortly explain like what it is. So they are nothing but the table name, like the name given to the tables that we are using. So here the first table is film underscore test, and what we do is, instead of addressing this table by its full name like each and every time, what we do is we give a space and then we usually give an alphabet or like 1 or 2 characters so that we can, instead of using this whole table name, we can make use of this alias name. So instead of film underscore test, I will be using just F. Similarly, for the second table, that I'm going to have this table, this is the T1 first table, and I'm doing an inner join, and then I'm mentioning the second table. So the second table is category underscore test, and I will refer this table as C. So what I do is I have given two different tables, like table 1 and table 2. So here it is F and C. I'm saying that these two tables should be joined using inner join. So that's fine. Like these two tables will be joined using inner join. So whenever we are going to use join, we need to also mention about how they need to be joined. So based on what column it needs to be joined. So here in this case, what I'm saying is I'm saying that this two tables should be joined based on f dot category ID. So both the tables should have these common columns. So when we try to join two different tables, there should be something common between them so that we can use that and join it. So here in this case, we are saying the category ID is common and I want to join based on the category ID. So when I execute this particular statement, so now what happens is it gets me everything from the table 1, and whenever a matching record is being found in the second table category underscore test, only records where there is matching found, which means that only records which has data from both the tables. So only those records would have been fetched. So here in this case, we are able to see that there are only 12 records retrieved, whereas the table 1 originally had 20 records and the table 2 had 7 records. So here in this case, like a table 1, the film underscore test is kind of the source, the main data set, and we want to get the category, like what is the category of that film from the second table. So whenever there is matching from both ends, only those records are being fetched. So here we have found there are 12 matching records. So that's how an inner join would work. So coming to the second one, left join. So what happens is still like film test is the main source. We keep it as the first table, and so if you see here, so this is the from the table 1, and of course select, we do specify the columns that we would want to select from this particular query. So we are saying that I want to select everything from the table 1, which is f dot star means every column from table 1, and only the name from the column one from the second table. And then I'm mentioning that this is the first table, and I want to join the second table, which is category underscore test, using left join and based on the column category ID. So in this case, what would happen is every record that is present in the first table, which is nothing but this film underscore test, will be retrieved, and whenever a matching record is found in the table 2, the values will be retrieved. For the other cases where there is no matching value, they will be kept as null. So let me show you the result, how it would look like. So if you see here, the number of records retrieved is 20. So every record from table 1 has been retrieved, and whenever a matching value is found from table 2, the values are retrieved. If you see, name is populated here in these cases. And in cases where for example, category 8 and 9 are not found in the categories table, so in those cases what happens is it comes up as null. So let me show you the category underscore test. So if you see in this table that it has category ID from 1 to 7 and nothing else. So that's why if you see in this particular table here, so what happens is whenever the category ID is 8 or 9, it's null. So here in this case it is null because the category ID is 9. So in these two cases as well, it is null because category ID is 9. So that's how left join would work. So moving on to the next one, which is the right join. So now in this case, it is exactly opposite to what happens in left join. So whatever is present in the second table should all come through, and whenever there is matching values in the first table, like they should be fetched. So now when I execute this, so if you see here, the number of records retrieved is 14. And if you see, there are two categories which is present in the category name is documentary and drama, which is present in the categories table, but there is no movies in our table 1, which is film underscore test, which falls into these two categories. So if I see here the category underscore test, film, category drama and documentary, so category 6 and 7 are related to drama and documentary. So when I go to the first table, so if you see here, there will not be anything that is present in 6 and 7. So there is no category related to 6 and 7. So that's why what happens is when I do a right join, so everything that is matching in common in both the tables comes through, and whatever is extra that is present in the second table also comes through towards the end. So that's why we have 14 records. So the last part for today is the full outer join. So depending upon the database that you are going to work on, the syntax here or the ways to implement this would slightly differ. For example, the MySQL that I am using right now does not support the full outer join. So there is no command as such a full outer join. So it has inner join, left join, and right join. But if you try to give an full outer join, like, it will not work. So in order to do what a full outer join would do, what I have done is I have modified the tables slightly. So what I'm doing is I'm first doing a left join, like film underscore test is the first, considering film test as the first table, and I'm doing a left join with category test. So this will fetch everything from film underscore test, and whenever a matching name is found from the second table, it fetches all of it. And the second query here would fetch everything from the second table. So here they are swapped, sorry. So still I'm using left join. So everything from the category test table, and whenever there is a matching record from the film underscore test, those records are being retrieved. And when I do an union, what happens is the results would get combined, and so the result would look something like this. So it will have every single record from table 1 and every single record from table 2. So that there are 20 records from table 1, all of it are being fetched, and out of the 7 records in table 2, the 5 values are matching. So for those 5 values, we are able to see the category name here, and then there are 2 category names for which there is no it is present in the categories table, but there is no film in those categories. So they come up in the end as new line items, but it doesn't have any other details regarding the movie. So that's how an full outer join would work. So having learned about all the 4 joins now, what I will do is I will supply some of the websites where you can learn more about SQL and where you can experience or learn practically. So there are a few websites which offers various scenarios, and you can write queries according to the scenarios. For example, there are websites which says that which would have a sample data set, and you need not install anything. So there will be a window where you can type in your SQL query. So there will be a small sample data set. There will be explanation about what data are all available, and there will be a scenario like asking you to fetch the data from the particular table, satisfying the scenario that has been asked. So you need to write an SQL to get an answer for the question that is being asked. So this is something that is very common when you have an online test. So during the online test for SQL, you will be finding these kinds of scenarios where there would be an explanation about the data set, and then a scenario would have been given. You have to write that query to satisfy or to get an answer for that particular scenario. So doing these things, like, you would get a better understanding about SQL. So even though you would have learned practically what SQL means, and then you have maybe if you are a university students, you might have also had some practical classes while learning SQL. But while reading through all these scenarios and then trying to learn from this, you would get a better understanding about all these things. And there is one more important thing that needs to be kept on mind while doing all these joins is when you are trying to join 2 different tables, you need to ensure that there is no join growth. For example, here in this case, I'm using the category ID. There is a film table, so this table has category ID, and I'm using category ID to get the category name from the second table. So if you see here, the second table, all the values are distinct. So if I show you this particular table here, so one category ID has only one row. So when I do a join, there is no join growth that is happening. So there would be an 1-to-1 mapping. So if in case, let's say there is category ID 1 is repeated twice, and in one place it says action, and maybe in the second record it says action movie. So both are ideally same. So maybe it is a data quality issue. So in those cases, what happens is there are two rows for category 1. So when you try to join based on this, there would be a join growth. So the number of rows would increase because on the certain table there are multiple records for the same ID. So in those cases, you need to ensure that in order to avoid the join growth, you need to ensure before doing the join whether there is an one-to-one mapping. So if there is no one-to-one mapping, so then most likely you are going to result in a join growth, which will lead to an incorrect analysis, especially when you are dealing with a lot of numerical data. Whenever the join growth happens, the values would get repeated, and if you are going to do analysis in order to fetch the average value, or if you're going to do the sum of the sales that happened, so when there is a join growth, the values will be different from what it should actually be. So these are all few things that you need to keep in mind while working on SQL, or while working on the joins especially. So that's it for today. I hope you have learned something new. If you have learned something new, please give a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. If you think that this might be useful for any of your friends learning data science, please share it with them. And that's it for now. See you on the next session. See ya. Bye.